Well, there's so many things to cover. One final question on immigration before we move on, Sammy. The critics say, even if you did immigration reform, it doesn't matter. All the immigrants are going to vote Democratic anyway. Is that true?
Absolutely not. 44% of Hispanics supported George W. Bush in 2004. I sat down with Carl Robert after that election. We had a conversation. Now, I'm a lamb's agenda guy. I believe the only answer for America is not the agenda of the donkey or the elephant. It's the agenda of the lamb. But with that context, I do believe there are very strong conservative values that resonate with the Hispanic American community. 27% supported Romney. 27%. In spite of the self-deportation rhetoric and everything else we heard. So I do believe it is an opportunity for Hispanics to come back and affirm the conservative ethos that stands embedded in the Hispanic American community.
Okay, we may get back to some more of that in a little bit. Both chambers of Congress have approved an increase to the nation's debt limit, and for the first time, Republicans allowed it to pass without putting up a fight to curb spending. Now, here's what House Speaker Boehner had to say about it.
This is a lost opportunity for America. We're on a spending trajectory that's unsustainable. The president knows it. Every Democrat and every Republican in this town knows it. And it has to be dealt with. And so it's a disappointing moment, I can tell you that.
You know, it was a disappointing moment because it was just raising the debt ceiling. David Webb, you're a Tea Party guy. How frustrated were you, and do you feel like that this was a real failure to not push for something in the debt ceiling deal?
I'm frustrated with the spending problem in Congress. I'm frustrated with Speaker Boehner. I'm frustrated with the Republicans on this issue. It's disheartening to see that the federal government as a whole, you're all to blame for this, Republicans and Democrats and otherwise, for this spending problem. With that said, I see a point of strategy in this. And the point of strategy, which is the bitter pill we have to swallow, we have no choice, is that the Republicans need to not buy more bullets, political bullets, for the Democrats going into 2014. We will have no chance of stopping Obama for 2 more years if we don't win take more seats in the House, if we don't win the Senate, and we're able to either override the president. There are Democrats who will vote with us on some issues. So I'm conflicted. I'm disappointed, but I understand the strategy point that could work. Now, for the Republicans, there is going to be massive failure on their part, Congresswoman. Take this back to Congress, takes the Speaker Boehner. If over the next several months you don't deliver to the American people, you're going home on break and you've got to talk to the people, and you deliver solutions, tangible results on issues, you also have the power of the purse. And it is incumbent upon you to use the power of the purse to block, to not fund. It's your constitutional responsibility to not fund programs, because if the American people and the independent voters, the likely voters, don't see results, you will not win the Senate.
Congresswoman, you weigh in on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with him. What people say to us when we're out and about, talk about the spending, what are you going to do about it? I thought we were spending too much when it was $7 trillion. Now it's 17 plus almost 18. Here are some of the things we're doing about it. Every year I offer amendments and bills to cut 1%, 2%, and 5% across the board. Save a penny out of a dollar and do it for the children. Do it for future generations. Everybody ought to do that. If we did this, we would save over $11 billion out of our discretionary spending. And it's time to do that. Get rid of duplicative programs. And as we go through the appropriations process this summer, now that we've returned the power of the purse to the House, we force the president to sign a budget. What you're going to see us go to the floor and do is disallow spending on programs that have outlived their usefulness. Defund navigators, defund the extra IRS agents, defund a lot of Obamacare, because that's how we do it. Absolutely, we will do it.
Well, here's my issue. I have to go back to this. It hasn't. It hasn't been effective enough. And I understand the plan of taking a haircut here off things in 1100. There's over $400 billion in duplicative programs, according to a GAO audit. These programs are not being dealt with in the House. And unfortunately, the Republicans have been as guilty and are as guilty of pandering to things that support what keeps them in power.
I'm going to push back on David a little bit. David, what I don't think the Tea Party understands is when you get elected, government is about compromise. And the first thing, when I think Speaker Boehner did a smart thing when he said we're going to pass a clean debt ceiling bill, because he put the monkey on the back of the spending Democrats who won't cut a dime, and the spending president. And the problem that we have time and time again as a party is, I think, when we dealt with the government shutdown last fall, what we saw is a lot of Tea Party folks wanted to get caught up in repealing Obamacare when it didn't have a chance to be repealed, instead of focusing on delaying the individual mandate, which is, there's a great argument for that now. So I think the only way that Republicans are going to be able to really cut this federal debt spending is if we get control of the House and the Senate.
Crystal, I think you make a very important point that I want to conclude this segment with, and that is that politics is ultimately an issue of math.
Right.
It is a mathematical issue. If you don't have the votes,
right,
it doesn't matter what you want to do.
Exactly.
You can take all the stands you want to take.
Right.
You lose. And then you lose and you don't really win the bigger issues. And I do think it's very important that what you said is taken to heart by our viewers. Republicans can win the rhetorical debate,
Thank you,
but they've got to win the mathematical debate, which means you have to get majorities in both houses.
Here's a basic.
Well, we got to move on.
Right.
All right, I want to hear from you at Huckabee Show on Twitter or the Huckabee Show on Facebook. Coming up, can Republicans win on the problems of Obamacare alone? Or do they need to come up with some alternatives and other issues? We'll talk about it next.